Are you seeing this being transmitted? Because I pressed the button.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just making sure no sound.
Okay. Good evening and welcome to this regular meeting of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth. Our meeting date is Monday, October 23rd, 2023. I'm Mayor Todd Kasenberg and I'll call this meeting to order. I ask the clerk to note our starting time for the minutes as 7 p.m. A warm welcome is extended to councillors, staff, delegations, and observers who will participate in this meeting, regardless of whether being physically in attendance in the council chamber in Listowel or being connected through web technologies. We begin tonight's meeting with the playing of O Canada. Those in chambers, as able, are invited to stand. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe peoples. We wish to recognize the long history of Indigenous peoples in Canada and show our respect to them today. We recognize their stewardship of the land. May we all live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship. Tonight's meeting is being streamed live on the Municipality of North Perth YouTube channel and will be available there after this meeting as an archived video. To those who are viewing this meeting via the YouTube channel, a warm welcome to you. To those present in the gallery today by attending a public meeting of the Council, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded and their voice, image, and comments will form part of the live stream. The chair and/or the clerk have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances when deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and/or unacceptable behavior and/or comments. Thank you. At this time, I invite your decorum over the course of the coming meeting. I do wish to acknowledge that Councillor Anstead, per Council's previous direction, is connected remotely to this meeting. And we'll make sure that we call on Councillor Anstead as appropriate. The clerk will help with that task. All right, let's move to item 5 on our agenda pertaining to pecuniary interest. For the benefit of those unfamiliar with council practices, provincial legislation requires councillors with a potential pecuniary or financial interest in any item at the council table to declare this interest and to remove her or himself from discussions and voting on the item. In accordance with recommended protocol at this time, I invite all councillors with a perceived pecuniary interest, including those who have declared already in writing, to verbally advise the chair in public session, and if not already done, to submit documentation to this effect in writing to the clerk. Councillors are further reminded that should a potential conflict arise during the meeting, they may so declare and act at any point in the meeting. Colleagues, to you, any of you wishing to make a declaration at this point? All right, I'm not seeing any indication of that. All participants are invited to speak when called upon by yours truly, serving as chair. Those participating remotely who wish to speak may draw the attention of the clerk through our conferencing technology's text chat function. Remote participants are asked generally to maintain a mute state in the web conference until I recognize your right to the floor. If when I do so recognize I don't hear you because you are muted or having some technical difficulty, I will advise and try to provide or send some assistance. I'm not going to do it personally, but we have people for that. Let us now focus on the people's business. I invite those in the chamber to silence and put away their phones. And again, I invite decorum. Let's turn to item 6 of our agenda. I have a motion before me for the approval of the agenda for tonight's meeting. There's some amendments that have been made that the clerk has explained by email, and so the revised resolution is as follows: that the agenda for tonight's meeting be approved as amended to remove agenda items 8.1 and 9.22. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Richardson, welcome, thank you. And Councillor Blazek, welcome, thank you, will be our seconder. Any discussion or debate on this item? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Let's turn next then to item 7 on our agenda, the so-called consent agenda. Consent items are placed on our agenda because they are believed to be non-contentious, yet they may warrant council's recognition and/or action. Grouping them expedites our business. However, any councillor wishing to extract an item or items from the consent agenda for discussion, debate, and individual action may do so. There are 12 items on our consent agenda tonight, including the minutes of our last regular council meeting. Councillors, anything to extract here or any corrections that you have noted that you would like considered to the minutes? Councillor Newman?
I would like to get 7.11.
7.11. Okay, thank you. Anyone else with an extraction? Councillor Duncan?
7.12, please.
7.12, thank you. Anyone else? I'm going to make the rare request that we extract 7.8, 7.9, and 7.10 tonight. So I think we'll have an active consent agenda this evening. All right, let's proceed with the process that I've usually used in this and turn to those items. Let's go to 7.11 first. That's Councillor Nordum. Go ahead.
Thanks through you, Mayor Kasenberg, and good evening, Council. I just want to make sure that Council, staff, and public are aware for this notice of public community meeting in Palmerston. So this is for the Palmerston Energy Storage Center. So that will be on October 26, 2023. The time will be 6 p.m. Till about 7:15, and that will be at the Palmerston and District Community Center Auditorium. Thank you.
My microphone. Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, go ahead.
I also believe that the company is coming to speak before Council November 13th.
Okay, so we will hear from them as well. But certainly the opportunity with this public information center is available to all of us. And it is a significant project, so it's probably worth some of our attention. Let's go next to 7.12. I think that's you, Councillor Duncan.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I just want to bring council's attention to this policy update from AMO, and I think that the council should recognize this, and probably we should have a motion supporting this and address to the Premier's office that we'd like to see this conversation had, and as well as all the other municipalities in Ontario be included on the email.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Duncan. So let's consider it moved by Councillor Duncan that Council endorse the briefing from AMO calling for a discussion on, how did they frame it? Social and economic prosperity. Thank you. And that we indicate our willingness to participate, if that's fine with you. And as well, we circulate this to other municipalities in Ontario, to the Premier, to AMO, of course, is the one making the suggestion. Who am I missing? And then local representatives of provincial and federal parliament. So that's considered moved, seconded by Councillor Rothwell. Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have a vote on that. And that is carried unanimously. I'll try to keep my comments brief here, but if council would like me to step out of the chair, I can do so. I wish to address item 7.8 and its collaterals, or 7.9 and 7.10, concerns about catch and release. And this is something that I have taken note of, certainly in the local jurisdiction. There have been a few cases brought to our attention at Police Services Board, as the Deputy Mayor will agree. And I think that, when police are giving their best efforts and then finding that those who have been charged and processed wind up being essentially released back into the community, there might need to be some evaluation of the performance of that practice in society. And so I think we should offer as a council a resolution that would endorse the originating letter. The interesting thing is we don't actually have a copy of the letter from Midland, but I think our intention should be to express sympathy and support for that letter and circulate this to the usual folks in the group, if that's all right. Council agreeable generally to this? Councillor Blazek, did you want to move this? All right, thank you. And who will be our seconder? Councillor Richardson will second that. Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this one? I know I was kind of pushing it as chair there, but this one feels pretty obvious to me. All right, if the clerk is basically caught up with us, then let's have a vote.
I'm in favor.
Thank you, Councillor Anstead. And mine didn't come up either, so I'll record a manual vote as being in favor. And Councillor Johnston is voting in favor. And I think that brings us to the whole crew, so that is carried. Thank you. I'm going to reload my agenda to see if that resolves the connectivity problem. All right, thank you. Now let's consider the whole of the consent agenda that we've been musing about here. As follows, that consent items 7.1 to 7.12 be received for information, and the minutes of the October 16th, 2023 regular council meeting be adopted. Moved by Deputy Mayor Callum, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Nordum. Any discussion or debate on this? Seeing none, let's have that vote.
I'm in favor.
Councillor Johnston is recording a manual vote in favor, and with that, I believe we have the team. Thank you. Councillor Johnston, sometimes just going back out and then reloading that agenda. All right. Sounds good. Okay. That means it's time to move on to agenda item number 8. Per our agenda, we have planned to hold 2 public meetings to address land planning matters. We're going to do something a little different tonight. The clerk and I have been bouncing back and forth about procedures here. And the chair has the privilege of calling a recess for the purposes, for whatever purposes, and in this case, the purpose would be to hold public meetings. So we can actually eliminate the need for a resolution to adjourn from council, which technically might not be what we need to do. And we're going to recess, and I can declare that on my own authority. So it's a little different, but I'm going to declare that we are recessing from council, and we are going to turn our attention to 2 public meetings at this point in time. All right. With that, let's begin our public meetings. So, welcome to those who are attending the public meeting pursuant to the Planning Act for a proposed amendment to the North Perth zoning bylaw. This is a statutory public meeting to deal with an application for zoning bylaw amendment number ZBA 12-2023 by Hillspring Farms, Inc., affecting property described as Concession 7, Part Lot 38 to 40, Wallace Ward, Municipality of North Perth, 6392, line 89. Correspondence, reports, and comments received regarding this application will be considered by council. Those in attendance remotely wishing to make comments concerning this application will be given the opportunity to do so. Anyone wishing to appeal council's decision in this matter must make verbal submissions during this public meeting or have made a written submission to council. Those wishing to receive notice of the decision regarding this application must notify the clerk via email or telephone, giving their mailing address and telephone number. At this time, I'm going to call for a summary of the application, and this will be offered by Nathan. Nathan.
Yes.
I've lost your last name, and in all of my notes here, I lost your last Garland. I got it just at that moment. There it was. Nathan Garland, who is a planner with the County of Perth. Mr. Garland, let me set your microphone up here for you, and let me get the camera focused on you. And you are on.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Just to introduce myself, my name is Nathan Garland. I'm the new planner with the County of Perth. As it relates to North Perth, I worked for Maitland Valley quite some time ago, and then also was a listable resident for a couple of years as well, too. So I'm here to just introduce this application and run through it with you. It is application ZBA 12-2003. The owner is Spring Hill Farms, and the owner and applicant is John Catterberg. The location is located in the north part of the township, the municipality, so it is in concession 7, part lot 38 to 40, Wallace Ward, municipality of North Perth. The location is 6392 line 89. There we go. So this application is for a rezoning of the retained farmlands as well as the surplus farm dwelling that was approved as part of a consent application. So in front of you is the slide just showing the surplus farm severance that was created, where it was about 1.2 acres taken off the farm parcel. And then the rezoned portion will be the farmland itself, so which prohibits the ability to place a house on that property in the future, as well as the surplus farm dwelling, which allows for a house to take place in an agricultural area without a farm. Just an aerial photo of the subject property. So the rezoning only applies to the agricultural area. There is some natural environment zoned on the property, and that will remain. So the application is rezoned into an A1 property. That is for the area outlined in yellow for the house, to allow for the house to take place. And the rezoned agricultural area is to an A62-8. That's a special provision to restrict the agriculture on the property just to agricultural buildings and uses, and to prohibit a house in the future. Just a couple of pictures of the property. So it does show that the barn was removed. There was a barn previously there. It's been taken away. And then there is the house there located on the property as well, too. That's on the severed portion. So it is my recommendation to North Perth Council that the application ZBA 12-2003 affecting the lands described as Concession 7, Part Lot 38 through 40, Wallace Ward, Municipality of North Perth, be approved. I'm happy to address any questions or comments.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Garland, and welcome. Welcome to Perth County and to North Perth Council. I just want to check in on the provisions of notice of public meeting. So I will turn to each of you in succession just to make sure that we have that on record. Mr. Garland, first, would you like to comment on what you understand have been the provisions of notice for this public meeting?
Yes, my understanding, the notice has been circulated to those adjacent neighbors as required as part of the Planning Act.
Okay, thank you. Clerk Carter, anything different?
Notices were circulated by mail to landowners within 120 meters, posted on our website, and a sign posted on the subject property on October 3rd.
Great, thank you very much. Let me ask about correspondence, comments, and reports received about this application. Mr. Garland, to you.
It should be noted that Maitland Valley was the only agency to provide comments. Those were supplied after the report was written. However, they are included in the agenda package.
Okay,
There was
you.
no concerns from the Conservation Authority.
Okay, thank you. And Clerk Carter?
No correspondence has been received.
Okay, thank you. All right, this is the opportunity then in this public meeting to invite anyone who wishes to make comments to do so. We begin first with those who are in favor of the application, other than the applicant. Is there any who have expressed an interest in participating in that way? So I can confirm that the clerk is shaking her head no. Next is those who are opposed to this application. Are we aware of any who wish to speak on that basis? The clerk is shaking her head no. Anyone in the audience? No hands are waving. Third is the opportunity for the applicant or the applicant's agent to speak. Have we had any expression of interest in that opportunity? All right, thank you. Colleagues, opportunity for you to ask questions at this point or make comments if you wish. Anyone? All right, let me read the statutory note. The notice of I'll find it. Notice of the decision of Council will be given in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. Council's decision is subject to appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal in accordance with provisions of the Planning Act. And that is that public meeting. Next, we turn our attention to the Planning Act meeting. Again, welcome to those who are attending a public meeting pursuant to the Planning Act for a proposed amendment to the North Perth zoning bylaw. This is a statutory public meeting to deal with application for zoning bylaw amendment number ZBA 13-2023 by the municipality of North Perth, affecting property owned by O'Malley Homes, described as Plan 44M74, Block 72, municipality of North Perth, 678 Ray Avenue South. Correspondence, reports, and comments received regarding this application will be considered by council. Those in attendance remotely wishing to make comments concerning this application will be given the opportunity to do so. Anyone wishing to appeal council's decision in this matter must make verbal submissions during this public meeting or have made a written submission to council. Those wishing to receive notice of the decision regarding this application must notify the clerk via email or telephone, giving their mailing address and telephone number. At this time, I will call for a summary of this application. This will be offered by Mr. John Bice, who is a planner for the County of Perth, who frequently works on North Perth files. Mr. Bice, nice to have you back with us.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg and council, members of the public. So before you today is a housekeeping amendment initiated by the municipality of North Perth for the lands known as 678 Ray Avenue South. It's just to the west of Mitchell Road South there, and I believe Pioneer Gas is on that corner portion of the slide up at the top right, just for kind of making sure everybody's aware of where it's at. So this application is essentially to rectify or change the zone that was created in error through the passing of Z03-2021-NP. This bylaw number is bylaw number 35-2021. This error occurred in April of 2021 for 678 Ray Avenue South. So the error was incorrectly rezoning the property back to the residential zone 3 or R3 zone when it should have maintained an R5-15 zone. So the R5-15 zone permits a townhouse on the subject lands, which the owner is proposing to construct at this point. So you see by the bylaw on the slides there, the red star indicates where the property is located in correspondence with the bylaw. Essentially, this bylaw was bylaw number 19-2019, and it placed the lands outlined by that star in that R5-15-H2 zone. Fast forward to 2021, the lands were then rezoned to remove the holding provision when in error they were placed in the R3 zone when they should have been R5-15. So this housekeeping amendment, the whole purpose is to rectify this error that occurred through bylaw number 35-2021 so that the proponents can go ahead and construct a townhouse. Townhouse developments or townhouse dwellings are not permitted in the R3 zone, hence the need to change it back. This is an image of the site, a little bit of extra requirements for this site. Because it's a corner lot, the shorter of the lots is considered the lot frontage, so there needs to be a site-specific amendment to allow that 20-meter requirement, or 20 meters, whereas 36 meters is required. This is technical in nature, as it's a corner lot. Same with the rear yard setback. At 3 meters proposed, where 7.5 meters is required. Again, it's due to the corner lot and it's technical in nature. I'll show you an image of the proposed townhouse as well. This is kind of what they will look like in the future. This is the townhouse immediately to the property to the north. They will all be set up in a similar fashion. They are proposing a 6-unit townhouse. And here's the layout. You can see kind of so technically, I don't have a pointer. I probably should have put that in the slides as well. But technically, the rear yard is the yard that's adjacent to the other townhouse to the north. So it's technical in nature because it functions as interior side yard, as well as the lot frontage, being technical in nature as it's located on Twanley Street, when in reality, Ray Avenue South is the one that's acting as the proper frontage. That's all for me. I can take any questions and comments at this time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Vice. I'm going to turn to both you and the clerk to provide information regarding the notice of public meeting.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Notice of public meeting was given on October 3rd. We've received no comments from members of the public at this time. Happy to provide any correspondence if anybody makes comments at this point. Additionally, notice was given to adjacent landowners as per the Planning Act requirements, and a sign was posted on the property.
Okay, thank you. Clerk Carter, anything different or notable?
No, notices were mailed on October 3rd. They were also posted on our website.
Okay, so that's a no. All right, let's turn our attention then to the public part of this meeting. Those who wish to make comments are now invited to do so. First, we call on those who are in favor of this application other than the applicant. To the clerk, do we have any who meet that definition, who identified ahead of this meeting?
No, nobody has registered.
Great, thank you. Next is the opportunity for those who are opposed to this application. Do we have any indication of those wishing to speak to that end?
No.
Thank you. Finally, is the opportunity for the applicant or the applicant's agent to speak or represent themselves at this meeting. Do we have any indication of that? No. Okay, not at this point. Colleagues, opportunity now for you to ask questions or make comments. Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd, and good evening, and council and public. I just want to confirm with the application itself, being the municipality of North Perth, the municipality undertook this on its own. There was no cost to the applicant, correct? And certainly apologies to the applicant. Mistakes do happen. It's just unfortunate. It may have caused some delay, but I'm glad that we're able to deal with it and see the developer move forward with much needed town housing in our community. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Rothwell. Anyone else with questions or comments at this time? Okay, the statutory statement, notice of the decision of council will be given in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. Council's decision is subject to appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal in accordance with provisions of the Planning Act. And with that, I can declare that our recess from regular council is over and we are reassembled as council. Now, let us turn to resolutions pertaining to the matters that came from the public meetings. First, I have a resolution. This is part of this revision here that we're doing. As follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth acknowledges that a public meeting was held for ZBA 12-23 affecting lands described as Concession 7, Part Lot 38 and 40, Wallace Ward, Municipality of North Perth. Can I call for a mover on this? Sure. Councillor Richardson will move, and Councillor Andreessen will be our seconder. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Next, same file as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves ZBA-12-23 affecting lands described as Concession 7, Part Lot 38 to 40, Wallace Ward, Municipality of North Perth. Can I call for a mover on that one? Councillor Andreessen will move, and Councillor Nordholm will be our seconder. Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Next, then, the second file from our public meeting as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth acknowledges that a public meeting was held for ZBA 13-2023 affecting lands described as Plan 44 M74, Block 72, Municipality of North Perth. Can I call for mover on this one? Councillor Johnston, thank you. And Councillor Duncan as our seconder. Any discussion or debate here? Seeing none, let's have that vote.
I'm in favor. I voted in
And Councillor Anstead has recorded a manual yes vote, which means that the resolution is carried. Next up is the bylaw as follows, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves ZBA 13-2023, affecting lands described as Plan 44M-74, Block 72, Municipality of North Perth. Can I call for a mover here? Councillor Rothwell, thank you, and seconded by Councillor Andreessen. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote.
also in favor.
And I think Councillor Anstead is our missing vote here. Councillor Anstead, what say you?
I'm in favor.
He's in favor, and with that, we can declare the motion carried. Thank you, colleagues. That brings us to agenda item number 9, reports from departments and key staff. And first, we're going to turn our attention to item 9.1, which are reports from the Manager of Strategic Initiatives. We have 3 of them tonight. First, as item 9.1.1, our Manager of Strategic Initiatives brings to the table a fulsome collection of reports that update our actions in progress and planned on housing and summarizes our submission to the CMHC's Housing Accelerator Fund. So, Ms. McLean, our Manager of Strategic Initiatives, stands before us. I'm going to ask her for an overview about this matter, and I give her discretion to call subject matter experts as needed. Ms. McLean, let me get the cameras right.
Thank you, Mayor Kaseberg, and good evening, Council. As stated by the Mayor, the purpose of this report is to provide Council with an update on the Perth County Housing Needs Assessment, the municipality's submission to the Housing Accelerator Fund, and also a progress update on our Housing Action Plan. To begin, I'd like to welcome and introduce Eric Caravanen of Watson & Associates. Eric is present virtually to provide a presentation on the Perth County Housing Needs Assessment Report. Following his presentation and a question period, I will then provide a short update on the HAF submission as well as the Housing Action Plan. So I'll just ask that he be pulled up.
Welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I hope you can hear me and see me.
We can.
Great, thank you. I have a presentation for this evening that I'm going to bring up onto the screen. So Watson and Associates was retained by Perth County and in association with its area municipalities to prepare a housing needs assessment. And the presentation this evening is to provide you with an overview of the study and its findings. So the Housing Needs Assessment provides a comprehensive review and analysis of current and future housing needs across the housing continuum within the county and within a local area municipal context. And the intent of the study is to help inform the development of county and local area housing policies to help the municipalities accommodate residential uses. This is obviously an important document not only for the county, but also for North Perth. The assessment considers a range of economic and demographic trends looked at from both a regional and local context that are influencing current housing trends and housing needs across the regional market, as well as within North Perth. The study also serves as a foundational document for North Perth's Housing Accelerator Fund application, which was submitted earlier this year and has helped inform housing growth targets for the municipality's HAF application. I'll speak to this in a little more detail later in the presentation. Now, in this discussion and review, it's important take a step back and understand housing needs within the county and within the municipality of North Perth from a little bit of a broader context. As similarly we've experienced as a province, the county and North Perth have experienced very strong population growth and demand for housing over the last 5 years. Between 2016 and 2021, North Perth's population grew by about 2,500 people, or 19%, increasing from about 13,500 in 2016 to about 16,000 in 2021. The population growth rate of North Perth over that period averaged 3.5% averaged annually, which is significant, both compared to the county and provincial average, which over the same period grew at 1.5 and 1.1% respectively. So North Perth has definitely seen unprecedented population growth over that time period. Over the next decade, we expect that the county and North Perth will continue to experience strong population growth, building on the trends over the past 5 years. The municipality's population base is expected to increase by another 6,000 people over the next decade, or 38%, growing to about 22,000 people by 2033. It's important that municipalities, in order to maintain balance and healthy communities, ensure long-term sustainability by providing for a wide range of housing options to accommodate both existing and future growth. This really is important to consider within the context of a broad range of household income groups and providing for a range of housing, including affordable housing. Provincial policy direction is also increasingly focusing on housing supply and market choice as being important considerations to meet existing and future housing needs of a growing and changing population. We've now seen this through recent legislation, through Bill 23, More Homes Built Faster Act, as well as the new proposed PPS, which may come into effect later this year. At the local level, we also examined housing market trends. We've experienced very strong housing growth in the county over the last 5 years, coinciding with that strong population growth that I mentioned. At the county level, housing growth has averaged about 333 units per year, which is about 1,600 units in total over the 5-year period, 2018 through 2022. Of that, about 68% of that housing growth, or about 1,100 units, has been accommodated in North Perth, the largest share of the county. Low-density housing comprised of singles and semi-detached units has continued to decline as a share of total housing development. We're seeing significantly more diversity in the housing development, with, for example, only about 53% of housing growth over the last 5 years at the county-wide level being single detached dwellings, with the balance being comprised of medium and higher density units. We have also experienced in the county at the local level significant appreciation in average house prices and rental rates in the rental market, which have increased at a much faster rate than average household income during that period, which indicates significant erosion in housing affordability at the local level. This is very much like what we've experienced provincially in many other markets in the province during the same period. So, for example, in North Perth, we've recognized through our analysis that resale home prices over the past 5 years have increased by about 78%, which is quite significant. Our review also assessed current housing needs at the county-wide level, with also consideration for North Perth. The current housing needs was basically assesses housing gaps within the existing population, has identified a structural deficit in housing supply that doesn't meet the needs of the current population from a housing affordability lens perspective. County-wide, we estimate this deficit to be about 315 housing units, which are needed in the form of affordable rentals to address roughly 55 households that are currently homeless and not captured in the local census data, and we estimate another 260 households that are in severe core need, essentially in housing that is either not adequate, possibly in overcrowding, and also with households spending more than 50% of their income on housing costs. We estimate that of that 315 units of current housing needs, about 2/3 or 215 of those units are required in North Perth specifically. Addressing this deficit in the existing need is important. It should be considered a priority not only for the county but also for North Perth over the short and medium term. We recognize, as I mentioned earlier, that the county and North Perth will continue to experience strong population growth over the coming decade, which will continue to drive demand for a broad range of housing, including rental and affordable options. The population growth is being driven heavily by strong net migration, primarily intra-provincial as well as international migration, as well as the county is also experiencing at the same time strong growth in the 65 plus population, which is expected to increase as a share of the total population base over the next 10 years. In this growth, we also expect that the county and North Perth will continue to see growth in young families and adults looking for more competitively priced home ownership and rental opportunities. So again, a diverse range of housing supply is needed to meet this growing population. It's important that this mix of housing be considered not only from a density typology perspective, but also from a tenure perspective, meaning ownership and rental housing, as well as housing that meets the needs of varying levels of income, including affordable housing options across the income spectrum. And this really does need to be considered both in terms of greenfield locations as well as intensification areas within the county and at the local municipal level. Our review has also assessed future housing needs over the next 10 years. This is building on growth work that's been completed by the county through their current OP review process. Through that work and building on that through this assessment, we realized that the county is expected to grow by about 3,200 housing units over the next decade to accommodate the forecast population growth. Of that 3,200 units, we expect about 38% or 1,200 units to be rental housing, with about 2,000 units or about 63% of the total being for owner-occupied uses. Of the 3,200 housing unit growth, we expect that about 20% or 1 in 5 units are required to be affordable in nature. We also looked at the future housing needs at the local area municipal level, including for North Perth. So of that 3,200 housing units countywide, we expect that about 77% are going to be required to be accommodated in North Perth, representing about 2,400 units in total over the next decade. Of that, we expect 465 of those units to be affordable housing, with about just under 2,000 being market-based units. So when examining housing needs from both an existing and future perspective, collectively we have derived a need for about 3,500 housing units countywide of new housing supply to meet the gaps that exist within the existing housing base, as well as to accommodate future population growth over the next decade. And that 3,500 units over that period represents about 350 units per year at the countywide level. Of that, we expect about 43% of those units to be rental housing, and about 57% being ownership units. So significantly more rental housing is required over the next decade than the existing housing base in the county. At the countywide level, we expect of that 3,500 units, about 26% or 925 units to be affordable units. North Perth specifically, we've identified a need for about 2,600 units to accommodate both the existing and future housing needs over the next decade, averaging a need for about 265 units built per year. Of that, affordable housing represents about 26% of that total, or 680 units. So in our analysis, we've also considered the current supply of housing that's in the development approvals process. At the countywide level, there's about 1,700 units in total, and within North Perth specifically, there's about 1,150 units. And while the overall quantum is reasonable, what we do realize is that the supply is not well aligned with the demand that we identified in the previous slide, especially as it relates to purpose-built rental and affordable housing units. And so it's very important that the county and its area municipalities, including North Perth, consider initiatives to help support and enable the market, as well as affordable housing projects, to be added to the development approvals pipeline to help the county as well as the area municipalities meet the current and future housing needs as identified through this work. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, the housing needs study serves as a foundational report for the area municipalities and their respective efforts at Housing Accelerator Fund applications, which were submitted earlier this year. As part of that effort, Watson assisted North Perth in developing housing growth targets for the application, and the slide here presents the baseline and accelerated housing targets for the municipality for that application. So the baseline housing forecast that is presented here essentially is based on historical residential building permit activity over the past 5 years, and it assumes more of a business as usual housing forecast for the next 3 years, where through the baseline analysis, it assumes that no half application funding would be received, and the housing action plan that's been developed would not be implemented. And so the baseline forecast is what would be expected with respect to housing growth over the next 3 years. And as you can see, it would total 678 housing units over that 3-year period, predominantly market units, largely single detached, with a small provision for multi-unit housing. Under the accelerated housing target forecast, which is presented below, which embraces the local housing action plan and assumes half funding to help support these initiatives, you can see an accelerated housing forecast of about 870 units over that same 3-year period, with the number of single detached units remaining the same as in the baseline forecast, but we would expect to see a more accelerated development of units that are multi-unit typologies to help address some of the gaps I mentioned earlier with respect to affordable and purpose-built rental type dwellings. The accelerated forecast overall does represent about a 28% increase from the baseline forecast with this more diverse housing mix. So at the local level, as well as for the county, it's important moving forward, building on this foundational report, as well as the local housing action plan, that the municipality very much consider the existing and future housing needs, but recognizing there's a range of initiatives that need to be considered in order to deliver on these units over the short, medium, and longer term. This includes recognizing that there's a need for a greater supply of housing units within the development approvals process. And part of that starts with ensuring that there is an appropriate quantum of designated developable lands and sites made available for development activity, really focusing on a strong balance between greenfield development as well as intensification opportunities that promote for an increasing share of the missing middle and other more alternative forms of housing to meet some of those affordability needs that I mentioned earlier. In order to help provide incentive, especially for purpose-built and affordable housing units, there's a range of regulatory and financial incentives that can be considered. On the regulatory side, this includes tools such as assisting with project feasibility through more flexible development approvals process, alternative development permissions, as well as reduced parking requirements and other design considerations to help support these applications. On the financial side, there's also opportunities to reduce the upfront financial obligations for the developer and or the operating costs moving forward for these types of developments. Through Bill 23, for example, there's been obviously a lot of changes coming to mandatory exemptions and discounts for affordable and purpose-built rentals from the province. That will definitely assist in this regard, but there are further, more discretionary measures that can also be taken at the local level to help supplement these efforts. It's important as well that the housing needs assessment presented here today is a snapshot in time, and it's important that for it to remain current and reflective of current housing needs, that the assessment at the county level, as well as with input from the area municipalities, be updated every 3 years. And I now turn that back to you, Mr. Mayor, for any questions or comments on our presentation.
All right. Thank you very much. A fulsome presentation with quite a few numbers that should be sobering, I would think, to most of us. Let me turn to my colleagues and see if there are questions or comments that they'd like to make at this point on the presentation. And I believe you're going to follow up after we have a question answer with the representative from Watson, right? Okay. It looks like Councillor Andreessen has her hand sort of up. So Councillor Andreessen.
Yes, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a question to begin with. The very last slide talked about incentives, financial incentives and regulatory incentives that could help with increasing the supply of rental units, or affordable rental units, of course, in our region. Are there any studies or numbers that would show the kinds of regulatory or financial incentives that have actually made a difference to increase rental housing in different communities? I would be interested to know what those incentives were and how successful they've been. Thank you.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, there has unfortunately not been a lot of studies or documentation that has considered this more from a sort of a time series or sort of historical lens. One of the challenges that we've experienced provincially is the affordable housing crisis that we've experienced has been relatively recent. And while there has always been a need for purpose-built rentals and more affordable housing options, it has not perhaps seen the same sort of profile of attention as it only has in the last couple of years. And most municipalities at the local level that have been addressing this have only really been now starting to look at best practices and implementation strategies, but there's limited sort of experience, especially in smaller, mid-sized and rural communities, of success rates. And so historically, a lot of the implementation side has only been explored more at perhaps the city of Toronto or in very large urban centers, which, obviously in the province, there's only a limited examples. So unfortunately, I cannot point you to any specific studies as such, but certainly there are some best practices and other strategies that have been implemented in other municipalities that we feel do have merit that could be explored more within a local context.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rothwell next.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd, and thanks very much for your presentation. I appreciate that. Just on that last point, is there something that Municipal Affairs could have in terms of a toolkit you mentioned about best practices municipalities could employ to encourage and support new rental housing and so on? Is there any such thing? And if not, what can we do to have Municipal Affairs and or AMO provide such a toolkit to every municipality so that we can utilize some of the best efforts of some of our other colleagues? Thank you.
Yes, certainly. Historically, much of the sort of the more applicable toolkits on purpose-built and affordable housing has come through CMHC. So this is federal. There are a number of sort of programs and toolkits that are available that can be referred to help start this conversation. It is important, though, that through that national lens, best practices. While there may be many that have potential, they do need to be considered, again, more through that local context, something that perhaps works in the city of Toronto or it may be in Vancouver or Calgary, may not be necessarily applicable for Perth County or for North Perth specifically. And so part of it is to canvass, the range of opportunities and to really hone in on what measures would provide the strongest net benefit for your community. And really the housing needs assessment is really important from a foundational piece, because what it helps provide is an understanding of the quantum of need. Because part of it is it's very difficult to implement without really understanding what your needs are and where those gaps are. And so with the foundational piece, developing a more applied action plan and implementation strategy, utilizing best practices that are tailored to your specific community is the recommended approach.
Further, Mayor Todd, I see in the news the City of Brampton's mayor has overruled her council dealing with the implementation of a R4 type zone or up to a fourplex in the city of Brampton. And historically here in North Perth, we've had an R4 zone, which is the predominant zone in all of Listowel and all of Atwood, which allows everything from singles all the way through to fourplexes as of right. And we've been very fortunate, in my view, that we've had many private developers that have built fourplexes on large enough lots. Is there anything further in particular in terms of getting to the affordable housing piece on rental in particular that you can point to that could assist us as a municipality for these small private developers developing small private rentals on a small scale basis? Thank you.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. That's very, very interesting, and I think in many ways some of the solutions to address some of these housing gaps and needs that I've spoken to, a lot of the heavy lifting I think is going to need to come more through the missing middle or even through just what we consider gentle intensification, where there's such a range of housing requirements, and often when people think of purpose-built rentals or affordable housing, it's these very large-scale, mid or high-rise type towers that people think of, especially in large urban centers. But in reality, there's also a real need for more of that missing middle, and what you described there with the fourplexes, I think, is exactly that. And part of it, I think, is that the fact you already have the zoning in place that allows for this type of development, I think, is obviously a very favorable starting point to this discussion. I think that probably where that conversation can go further is looking at more, are there certain feasibility challenges to that type of development locally? There may or may not be. And if there are, then to look at, are there any sort of upfront capital funding or anything on the operating side that could be subsidized by the municipality or the county to help enable and support that development. There's also the possibility through the new provincial Bill 23 in terms of reduction or exemptions from municipal fees for affordable housing and reductions in development charges, for example, on purpose-built rentals, which will be of assistance, which need to be considered. And there may be other options as well, such as looking at what they call TEAGs, which are tax increment equivalent grants. So, for example, if it's a purpose-built rental and it's subject to certain taxation based on the improvement to that property, perhaps there's an opportunity for grants to be applied for a series of, a period of 4 or 5 years thereafter to help on the operating cost side for the owner and manager of that development. So there definitely are some tools. I don't think that there's necessarily one single tool that is going to necessarily provide all the solutions, but probably more of that toolkit approach where there's sort of a range or a suite of tools that can be utilized. That is really important.
Anyone else? Councillor Andreessen, a second crack here.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor Kaysenberg. I'm just wondering if there's also additional record or information of what other municipalities are doing in terms of perhaps even investing in developing affordable rental housing.
Well, certainly, as I mentioned earlier, I think there are, a range of best practices on the purpose-built rental side. Most municipalities in Ontario have seen, sort of a lag or sort of purpose-built rental has not kept up with demand, and a share of overall housing development has been somewhat limited over the past decade or even 20 plus years. And so definitely there is a need to look at this in most municipalities to understand the role of purpose-built rentals and the need for expanded supply to meet the housing needs identified. As I mentioned, there are tools and incentives available to help enable developers to look at these types of projects more favorably. So, for example, in many municipalities, a condo development versus a purpose-built rental development, in many cases, a condo development will be more attractive from a development feasibility perspective because of greater revenue potential on the upfront. There's less risks to the developer. There's, the range of cash flow considerations are quite, there's more challenges with purpose-built rentals versus condos. And so that's one of the major hurdles, is to try and provide more balance on the feasibility side. And then, of course, there's also, I think, especially in smaller municipalities, perhaps not always the optimal environment to have builders who maybe have experience or interest in developing product that is something other than grade-related housing. So I think that's another sort of side of this that needs to be addressed to ensure that, yes, even if you provide for a favorable environment, can you provide an environment that you have the right builders they're interested to build the product?
Thank you. Other questions at this point? Councillor Rothwell, one more shot at this.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd, and not to totally override things, but anyways, today the federal housing minister, Sean Fraser, Minister of Housing, Infrastructure and Communities, is quoted as saying they're calling on municipalities to be more ambitious, in quotes, with funding applications. This is specifically regarding the Housing Accelerator Fund. And Mayor Todd and I have spoken specifically about the City of Stratford's Social Services Department and their Housing Division in particular, and the good work that they've been doing in the City of Stratford. And two projects in particular. One is the creation of 35 affordable rental units. Two of them are accessible, fully accessible units. And then the most recent one, which hopefully is going to have residents in this month, 27 affordable housing units. 6 of them are accessible. The first one was $4.5 million, that 35 units. And the most recent one is $9.7 million. Now, the City of Stratford is about 36,000 people. Municipality of North Perth, I think based on the numbers here, is approaching 16,500. And I think it's crucial, if we're going to be ambitious and we are going to take up the need of our residents that want to live here, is that I'm going to encourage our county councillors to have conversation directly with the City of Stratford and the Housing Division to say, we need to have a project similar to the 27 or 35 affordable rental units within this community. The time has come. We had our presentation here of all the about housing, and when the question was asked, how many affordable units have been built, purpose-built within the municipality of North Perth, the answer is 0. We need more than 0. We need to have a fair share to address the needs within our community, which are very justified. And if that means that we have to put our money where our mouth is, we've talked about this as a council, perhaps there's specific lands that we're looking at putting at the table. But I do think that we have to have other partners, including our consolidated service manager, the City of Stratford, on the Housing Division side, to look specifically with us for a affordable rental housing within our community. And lastly, I think it's crucial when we do talk about our Housing Accelerator application that we do have in. We thought it was ambitious, and I think it is ambitious, and hopefully, as the Minister, Sean Fraser, says, they're looking for the best of the best. Well, I think it's awfully good. I think our staff have worked well with United Way and others, and hopefully we will get the nod for not only that project, but others. So the gauntlet's been dropped for all of us here, and clearly the work that Watson has done has shown that there is a real need within our community to provide funding to build purpose-built rentals by both the private and public sector. And the only way that we're going to get that done is if we truly work together and realize that, and yes, we're in competition with communities of all sizes across this country, and $4 billion is not going to go too far when you look at that, but it will go, it's better than nothing. And that's more a comment than anything else, but I think it's crucial, and it's right in the news today, that we need to be more ambitious with our funding applications. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Rothwell. I tread cautiously now. I will point out at this point that the county does not have a housing action plan. And yet, many of the things that that our guest has spoken about includes policy and choices that are made in planning even, which is a county function. And I tread carefully because I remind this council that I introduced a resolution at Perth County Council calling on Perth County to build a housing action plan, and that was turned down. I can't call for its reconsideration, so I'm stuck procedurally, right? I can't ask for another kick at that can. My colleagues at County Council must do so, because the county needs to have a housing action plan. And so I will speak to all of my colleagues from all of the lower tier municipalities who serve on that council to say, can we not reconsider at this point in time the development of a housing action plan for Perth County? Needs to happen, in my humble opinion. With regards to other matters, I think we should probably turn the tables over to Ms. McLean to update us on a few other pieces of the puzzle. I do point out, though, that housing accelerator funds, and I hope Ms. McLean will clarify a little bit, should we be granted those that were put into the proposal, will not get us all that close to a solution directly, and especially the solution that I think all of us have some aspirational interest in, which is the redevelopment of the library lands and the opportunity to build affordable housing on that site. Before we deal with anything, I don't want to sort of leave Mr. Carvin sort of sitting there unnecessarily. So, Mr. Carvin, I'm going to assume that you'd like to stay for the remainder of Ms. McLean's presentation. But before we move on here, deep appreciation to your team for the work that you've done and bringing those sober numbers to our table. All right, Ms. McLean, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Eric, for your presentation. So as an update on the municipality's Housing Accelerator Fund application, we have not received any news on a decision to date. We did want to provide council, though, with an update, as at the time of our last report on our application, we did not have the final numbers yet on what our ask would be. So in terms of the amount that North Perth will be eligible to receive if our application is successful, based on the growth targets that were calculated by Watson and Associates, with HAF support, North Perth's growth over the next 3 years is projected to increase by an additional 192 units, and that would be a total of 870 units over the 3-year period. If our HAF application is approved, we can anticipate to receive approximately $8 million in funding over that 3-year period. As a reminder, the funding from HAF can be used for 4 main purposes, and that is to firstly implement the actions in our Housing Action Plan. We can invest in affordable housing, invest in housing-related infrastructure, and invest in community-related infrastructure that supports housing. And that list is quite broad in what you can invest in. I just wanted to also note the comment made by Councillor Rothwell earlier about the news today about the Housing Accelerator Fund. So we were also reviewing that news, and CMHC has posted a list of 10 best practices for an ambitious Housing Accelerator Fund application. We were quite pleased to see that the majority of the items on there were included in North Perth's submission or have already been implemented in North Perth. So we're going to be sending a letter to our CMHC advisor just pointing out that bit of information as they review our application. In terms of our Housing Action Plan that was presented to Council prior to our submission to the HAF program, we have made a few updates to it since that time, and that was in order to include some of the actions that were in the original Housing Work Plan that was presented to Council in October 2022. So most of those actions that were in that original work plan were in the Housing Action Plan. A few of them, though, did not meet the criteria of the HAF program, so we left them out for the purposes of submitting our application and now have added them in. So you'll see them noted in the plan that's attached to the report in the Council agenda. So this will be really valuable to have all of the Council-approved actions in one document in terms of implementation and tracking. And lastly, we have also included in the agenda package a progress update on the implementation of the Housing Action Plan to date, and that can be found on page 159 of the agenda package. As mentioned at the budget meeting last week, municipal costs will be coming forward in the 2024 operating budget proposal related to the implementation of some of the priority items in that action plan. As an example, we also have recently done the kickoff of the Housing Community Improvement Plan project with Stantec Consulting supporting that work. And we have also retained R.J. Burnside to conduct the environmental work that's required on the municipal property in Atwood in order to move forward with the record of site condition submission. So just a few things noted in that progress update, and I can answer any questions council may have as well.
All right, thanks, Ms. McLean. Before I entertain questions and comments, I want to offer that, we have, as a council, the previous term of council talked a lot about housing, and a lot of interesting and progressive work has been done. We built a housing action plan well before the Housing Accelerator Fund came along and asked us to do that. And now we've augmented our housing action plan with actions from the Housing Accelerator, some of which are bound to happen, whether or not we get money, because we intend to make more forward momentum here. So I want to sort of give a shout out to the work that this council and the previous council have done on this file. But most importantly, I want to give a shout out to CAO Snell for his gentle yet continuing persistence in this matter, and I appreciate the service that he's offering this council to make sure that this issue moves forward, and most particularly to Ms. McLean, who's focused a lot on this issue and has brought a lot of value add and insight to the process, and acquired a massive new knowledge base personally, so your learning is much appreciated, and who is a very articulate steward for us in making sure that things happen on this the important file around housing. So we're grateful to both of you and to the team that's supporting you with numbers and information coming out of planning, coming out of building department and so forth. A wonderful effort has emerged from all this, and I think that council certainly needs to owe its appreciation to the team who've taken this one quite seriously. With that said, other questions or comments for the team? Councillor Blazek, please.
I share the mayor's sentiments on your hard work and all of the effort that has gone into this initiative. Affordable housing is imperative. I want to talk about your housing action plan number 16, which for council's reference or the public's reference can be found on page, I believe, 161 of the agenda. It is the investigation, planning, and construction of affordable housing units and/or complex in Atwood. Now, please know that I do not raise this issue lightly given the dire need for affordable housing that we are facing. However, I have big concerns about investing time and resources into the consideration of building such a complex in this specific location. I grew up in a household that relied on affordable housing. I was raised by a single mom with 4 kids. We struggled greatly with food insecurity, and we moved a lot. Most of that time was spent right in Listowel, but there was a brief period of time in 1996 and 1997 where we rented a place in Atwood. Those roughly 18 months were challenging and short-lived because, unfortunately, Atwood couldn't provide us with what we needed. And frankly, not much has changed in Atwood in the 27 years since. There are very few jobs in Atwood. There is very little in the way of childcare. There is no grocery store. There is no indoor recreational facilities. There are no social or public service hubs. And there is not reliable enough public transportation at frequent enough intervals throughout the day to get residents to and from work, to the grocery store, to recreational facilities, home from after-school jobs, home from extracurricular activities at school, to medical office appointments. Struggling households require a vehicle when living in Atwood, and for many that isn't feasible. Struggling families also often rely on their adolescent children who cannot drive to help them with tasks required to successfully run a household. Walking to the grocery store, picking up a younger sibling from childcare, stopping by the food bank, or being able to have an after-school job simply to help their family make ends meet, just to name a few. Atwood is a beautiful and wonderful community in which to live and visit, and I am not saying that it won't maybe one day offer these things, but it doesn't offer these things right now, and we're talking about investing dollars right now. If we want to successfully invest in affordable housing, then we need to take a long, hard look at what those households really need and where they will have access to those things. So this is my question to municipal staff. Can you provide us with any information that will make this location make sense? Because I really want to fully support this project. And I do very much understand from personal experience and from being in this community how vital this type of housing is to the success of many families and individuals. But unless and until someone can make this location make sense to me, I am of the opinion that continued time and resources spent on affordable housing in this particular location at this time may be a misguided use of taxpayer dollars, and I cannot support it.
Okay. Why don't we start with Ms. McLean?
Yeah, thank you for your comments. I agree with the points you've made. The environmental work that we are doing right now, it would be required to be completed for any future use of this property, any community use, in order to change the zoning from industrial to whatever it would need to be. So if council does decide not to move forward with a housing project here, it would still be valuable to complete the environmental studies so that this property could be used for other things in the future.
Okay. CEO Snell, did you want to weigh in on this at all?
Certainly, we can certainly review the comments made by Councillor Blazek. I think some of those points are very well made. One of the reasons why this property was initially identified is because it was one of the properties that didn't require us to go outside a boundary settlement adjustment through an official plan amendment currently for property we own in the municipality. So that was the short term. That may change relatively quickly with the new county official plan, but that was really the one of the reasons why we targeted this location initially.
Okay. Anyone else with comments or questions at this point? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd, and thanks, Councillor Blazek, for your comments. Atwood's undergoing significant change, which it's never seen of this magnitude before. Many people are going to be coming to this community, and many people, in terms of in the Atwood general area, are going to be looking for additional services. We have to rely on private individuals to bring forward their desire, whether it's for a grocery store, whether it's for a general store of some nature into Atwood, which has not existed for quite some time. Will it happen? I don't necessarily believe it's the municipality's responsibility to start a store. I think we have to leave it to the private market to undertake that. It is becoming more thriving, and certainly the subdivision in the North End in particular, when you see the housing that's developed there, is specific and is going to change, almost double the size when it's completed of Atwood. And that, in my view, in and of itself, is going to change Atwood into something which it's never been before. There will be a hustle and bustle. There will be additional places which will come to service those within that community. And certainly when we look at schools, Elma Township Public School in particular has the ability to be a location where children can go to school without having to be on a school bus for half an hour, 45 minutes. There are very important things to realize within our community in terms of affordability, and depending on where people are on that spectrum. And yes, a car is crucial to get around. We do have PC Connect, and it's not the be-all and the end-all for everyone. But it is something more than we had even 4 years ago. So there is change, it is happening, and we need affordable housing throughout North Perth, in my view, not just in Listowel. It has to be beyond just Listowel. Within North Perth, we have decried the fact that many of the services are based out of Stratford. That has been going on for years and years and years. We are seeing changes to that effect. all services still are not available here in North Perth in the Listowel ward. This is changing, but I don't think that would be the reason why we would not want to invest in Listowel, for example, because we haven't got everything. I think we have to make do with what we have and utilize, hopefully, the ability for something which could make a difference for some people. Not for everyone, but at least for some people. That's my view. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll cap questions and debate at this point. Anything further, Ms. McLean, before we consider a resolution for you?
Not on that report.
All right, thanks. So let's consider the resolution here pertaining to Ms. McLean's report as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receives the report Housing Update, Housing Needs Assessment, Half Submission, and Housing Action Plan Update dated October 23rd, 2023 as information. Can I call for a mover on this? Councillor Johnston and Councillor Richardson will second. Any discussion or debate further on that? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried, and we thank Mr. Carvinen for attending our council meeting and providing the very meaningful and meaty update and presentation. And we look forward to future interactions with you. I suspect there may be some. Mr. Carvinen, thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Good night.
All right. In item 9.1.2, our Manager of Strategic Initiatives has brought forward an updated draft of the North Perth Corporate Strategic Plan to last for the balance of this term of council. It is over to us, as I understand her memo, to offer final inputs and comments on this particular draft. Ms. McLean, some brief comments on this.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we have received the final report of the updated North Perth Corporate Strategic Plan from Catherine Osterbane of Osterbane Strategy. The goals and the priorities included in the plan have now been ordered based on the feedback of council through the prioritization exercise. So at this time, staff are requesting that members of council review the report and provide any additional comments or feedback to us by Wednesday, November 1st. This will allow us to incorporate any of those comments into the final draft that will be brought to the November 13th council meeting for adoption. Catherine Osterbane is also in attendance tonight virtually if council does have any questions or comments that they would like to provide tonight.
Okay, thank you, Ms. McLean. So let's just check in on that. So colleagues, at this point, we do have our consultant available to us if there are immediate questions that have jumped out in terms of your review of the draft that has been provided. Anyone have anything written down that they'd like asked at this point? Or shall we turn to the general strategy of offering questions and comments? I assume email to Ms. McLean, who will then coordinate with Ms. Osterbane. Anyone have any direct questions now? Okay. We're glad Catherine was with us, but we might not need her tonight. Okay, so let's consider the resolution then as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receives the North Perth Corporate Strategic Plan 2023 to 2026, and that members of council provide any additional comments on the final plan to the Manager of Strategic Initiatives by November 1st, 2023. So there's a clock ticking, moved by Deputy Mayor Kellum, seconded by Councillor Andreessen. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. And next up then is, all right, item 9.1.3. This is a hot topic in our town. We hear about this one a lot. And tonight we're going to get somewhere with this one. We're invited to consider the matter of cell phone service gap that is increasingly being documented in various areas of the municipality. We have Ms. Couch with us tonight, who's been a party to a number of discussions and stakeholders talking to her and to some of us too. And she's certainly been involved in some of the research and support in trying to understand the gap. So Ms. Couch, you're with us to explain, summarize, and suggest a course of action. I invite you to do so.
Thank you, Mayor Kirstenberg and members of council.
You need to turn the microphone on.
Sorry, I thought I did. Thank you for the opportunity to provide an update on this issue. Cellular service performance gaps does appear to be increasing, as many of you are aware. And by service gaps, I mean no service or dropped calls. And that has become a hot topic and has been raised at various meetings of the Chamber and of the North Perth Economic Development Committee recently. Cellular service gaps do have implications, both productivity and revenue implications to businesses and residents, safety impacts to residents, and emergency response time implications. There are suggestions that this reduction in service levels may be due to North Perth's expanding population, businesses, and number of businesses, as well as due to the increased use of cellular service and texts. North Perth Economic Development Advisory Committee has now requested support from North Perth Council to generate a letter and seek resolutions to these cellular service gaps with appropriate bodies and organizations. The Chamber and local business did meet with SWIFT in February of this year, who did clarify that their scope does not apply to cellular service at this time. It does pertain to the expansion of broadband service. However, they have noticed an increase in cellular service gaps during the implementation of the project. A recommendation was made for a survey or for local data to be gathered that would give more specifics on the issue. So the North Perth Chamber of Commerce did proceed to do a survey over a 6-week period. Over 300 responses were received in that period, and questions were asked specifically around location, so street coordinates or intersections, the ISP or internet service provider, also called telecommunication service provider, so things like TELUS, Rogers, and Bell, and finally cellular network, so that would be 5G, LTE, 4G, or 3G. So a map was linked to this report that gave a pretty informative summary of the issues, and the cellular service gaps are more broadly distributed across both rural and urban areas, ISPs, and networks than initially anticipated. The Chamber has had some involvement as well with our MP and MPP on the matter. The MPP, Matthew Ray, did issue a letter to the Ministry of Infrastructure with the response that it was a federal matter, that they do find, or that their focus is on increasing internet connectivity and not on that, and that it was a private matter and would and a federal one. MP Nader did offer to advocate with the federal ministries of industry and rural economic development. A new development has arisen since the time of this report being written, that he has offered to develop a roundtable that is being pursued by the MP's office with details to be determined, and staff will share the details with council by email at a later date. So efforts to address the issue directly by customers with internet service providers, including changing new ISPs, have had minimal impact. And that was one of the recommendations that the provincial ministry did propose. That has been taken by many businesses in the area to no impact or to minimal impact. So North Perth Economic Development Advisory Committee now requests that North Perth Council generate a letter that identifies the cellular service gap problem in North Perth and the urgency to address the issue. There's no financial impact aside from staff resources to carry this forward.
Right, thanks, Ms. Couch. Colleagues, questions, first comments? Councillor Andreessen.
I believe in the report, thank you through you, Mayor Kasenberg, and thank you for your report. And I believe when I was reading through this, there is nothing, no communication yet with CRTC. And I'm hoping that perhaps in this letter we could address the CRTC and, of course, share our concerns with that as well. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Suggestion noted. Other questions or comments? Councillor Rothwell?
Yes, I thought Councillor Richard was up, but anyways, thanks very much for your presentation, Kim. And specifically, we're all customers in terms of our one of the cell phone providers. And we all pay our monthly fees, and the point is that many of us are not getting the services that we're paying for. And I think the critical issue is this, is that when customers are not getting what they're paying for, we're going to see an uprising, which Rogers, for example, hasn't seen since the outage that they had. They made specific action because they realized that they had a specific problem. And I think that it doesn't matter who your provider is. Some people think they've got the best and so on, and then they go to a different area, and then clearly they find that they're not the best at all. You can be on a call. I'm not saying anything that people haven't experienced, and you've got 3 bars, and all of a sudden you're at 1 or you're at none. And remarkably, I mean, we all believe in technology, but frankly, our phones have got smarter and smarter, and their demands have been much more significant in terms of power, but they've had less and less ability to keep and retain a call at a powerful enough level that you can actually complete that call. And as you rightly point out, this is more than just business productivity and personal matters. It's personal health and safety. And frankly, when you put that on the table, that starts making things roll and roll fast. When we started implementing 911 in all of Perth County, it was public health and safety that drove that. And it was municipal addressing that was required before we could get 911. So we've come a long way since then, and 911 was the critical issue was public health and safety, but we know now that municipal addresses are used by everybody for everything so that we can get our delivery and businesses are able to keep moving and people are able to come and go because they know where they're going. We rely on our communications in the 21st century now more than ever, and frankly, money is being made by our telcos at an alarming rate. I think it's fine that you do that, but you better provide the service. And I think whatever we can do in our letter to encourage and support every one of those companies to invest and invest more and cooperate, because we have at this table, when we do see presentations for new cell phone, new towers, whether they be in Moncton or elsewhere, one of the specific requirements is that they have to share their towers. They don't all share. They would rather put up their own tower. We do not need towers beside each other. We need taller towers, and we need more of them, that they're all available for them. So we all can encourage and support the change, and I'm certainly in support of writing a letter to that effect to all the cell phone companies, as well as mentioned, the CRTC, and certainly our local MP at the federal level. I mean, we can certainly let our MPP know as well, but this is crucial. And when we talk about economic growth and development, if you can't stay on and make a phone call, we're back in the dark ages, and that's not helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rothwell. There are parts of Atwood that are in the dark ages, how it would appear, as a result of the cell phone and service that's available. It's been actually challenging at times for me to have conversations with CAOs now over the years that I've been mayor, because the service in my home is so terrible that I can't sustain a conversation with him. So I'm certainly very sympathetic to this one. Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Kaysenberg. Although I can, on one hand, appreciate, and I agree 100% that we need to put these letters, and they need to be worded in such a way that, yes, we want to be welcome in open arms, but come on, let's get it done. Like, we seem to be, and I can understand the gesture, so to speak, to get a round table together, but we need a cell tower I understand that takes action. It's just that that's necessary, but to sit around and talk about it, that we also need to get the actions in place to make it happen. Is there an opportunity to possibly solicit people who have placed a tower in the past that maybe we could do a 2-for-1 deal or something here? I don't know how that regulatory framework works as far as that, but the recent one in Moncton, for example, that company was successful in putting it there. Would it hurt to reach out to them, or do they have flaming hoops to do that themselves? I don't know, but it's try and beat every bush that we possibly can, because we got to make them, like Councillor Rothwell said about health and safety. That's critical. Sending text messages that I'll be there at 7 is one thing, but having a 911 call to get dropped, that's totally a different thing. Thank you.
I'll add that the infrastructure lies in the hands of two companies, essentially, Bell and Rogers. And unless they're moved, we're not going to see a whole lot of change, from what I can tell. Now, maybe we can be creative. 2-for-1 deals sound promising. But it's Bell and Rogers that will need to move to change the infrastructure for us, to add to the infrastructure so that we have better receptivity across our community. Councillor Norton.
Thanks to you, Mayor Kiesenberg. Thanks for the report. Councillor Rothwell, Councillor Richardson covered it pretty well there, and so did Mayor Todd. But also, maybe with this letter, an agriculture approach as well, too. I know with technology in my barn, every minute matters when it's a problem. And then even Atwood, there's no cell service there. So, I mean, if I'm just hanging out with a friend, I don't know what's going on in my barn. If a pig barn or chicken barn, if the fans turn off and you don't get that phone call, not many good things happen then. So, thank you.
Great. I think actually collaboratively over this discussion, we've built content that should be extracted from the video of this council meeting so that we can write this letter effectively and address all of these needs. So thank you. Councillor Blazek.
Thanks, through you, Mayor Todd. While we're writing this letter, we could also look at this from an industrial lens, because there are many companies, for example, LTI, where every minute counts just the same as it does in your barn, and every minute that line is down and they can't get the help or services that they need, it's costing them money and therefore our economy money.
Thank you. Councillor Richardson, one
last thing, just a supplemental, thank you so much. Just wondering, who are we sending this letter to? Would it be like Bell and Rogers directly? Like, who is getting this tersely worded, fantastic letter that we're going to compose here?
I think that's what you've proposed, as well as if council is in approving giving, approaching the CRTC, if we're in the position to do that, then we would do that as well. I think our MPP, but it does appear that the MP is more applicable. And also, if there's opportunity for us to serve on the roundtable or to be involved in meetings, then we would pursue that to address the issue as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else want to weigh in before we consider the resolution? The resolution is as follows: that council directs staff to prepare a letter for the mayor's signature on behalf of council that identifies the cellular service gap in environs of North Perth and requests action and/or supports to see this gap closed in an expedient manner, and directs said letter to be sent to the right stakeholders. And we've heard who some of them are. Councillor Richardson, I assume, is going to move this. Seconded by Councillor Nuram. I saw your hand. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. That letter is going to be composed. It's going to be wonderful, and it's going out. All right, thank you. I'm at that point where it's like I could call a health break, but I don't think this meeting is going to last more than another half hour. So shall I press through? Okay, so some could use a health break. Let's take a 5-minute break at this point then. I think with one expression of same that there are others of us who would appreciate it, I'm sure. Back at 8:51. All right, we now turn to item 9.2, reports from our Development and Protective Services Department. Item 9.2.1 invites council to grant an exemption from part lot control to O'Malley Homes for lands in the Elma ward. This is usually done to allow lot line adjustments, including creation of new lot lines in a parcel that is developed. And we have Mr. Garland, I got your last name now, here with us to explain and answer any questions. Mr. Garland, thank you for being patient with this forgetful mayor at times, apparently.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I do have a very short presentation for this. So this is an application for part lot control exemption. The application is 7/2023, but is by O'Malley Homes. The location is block 71, registered plan 44M-74. The municipal address is currently 642 Ray Avenue South, Elma Ward, Municipality of North Perth. So the application is just a division of the subject property. You'll see the 10 blocks located. So there are parts 1, 3, 5, 6, 7, and 8, or sorry, 9. My apologies. Those will be created into separate semi or row type houses. The separate blocks 8, 10, 2, and 4 will be located for an easements or drainage easements to provide for drainage across the back of those properties. So those will be registered separately or as part of those part blocks. There's just a picture of Mr. Bison provided of that subject property. So they are currently building those. Because of the part lot control exemption, it's a little bit easier to survey the actual middle of the wall because that is a division of those shared walls through there. So it makes it just a little bit easier for those properties to be developed as they are and severed off right now, or I guess divided via part lot control when the properties are currently being built, or at least the foundation's in place typically. And it is my recommendation that North Perth Council approve the request for the exemption from part lot control application filed 7/2023 submitted by O'Malley Homes for lands described as Block 71, Plan 44M74, shown on the reference plan 44R6159, Part 1 through 10 in Elma Ward, Municipality of North Perth, and for the bylaw control to be forwarded to the County of Perth for approval. Thanks. I'm happy to address or answer any questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Garland. Welcome to the group of people who get to read all kinds of crazy numbers in resolutions. Congratulations, and it's a great club. All right, colleagues, any questions or first comments on this matter? Everyone knows what we're doing here, all right. The resolution as follows, I'm going to read it again. Oh, I missed somebody. Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd. Just one thing, in future, could we have a report photo with the report, just so we can put it all together? We normally get a report photo with them, but...
Yep, I can make that amendment in the future.
Thanks.
Very good, thank you.
Thanks very much.
All right, thanks. So here's the resolution. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves the request for exemption from part lot control file 7/2023 submitted by O'Malley Homes for lands described as Block 71, Plan 44M74, shown on 44R6159, Part 1 through 10, Elma Ward, Municipality of North Perth, and forward the bylaw to the County of Perth for approval. Moved by Councillor Johnston, seconded by Councillor Richardson. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have the vote. And that is carried. Mr. Garland, you've survived your first North Perth Council meeting. Congratulations. All right, next we're going to go to item 9.3, which is reports from the Facilities Department. We have one tonight. Item 9.3.1 invites council to award a contract. Let me change the cameras here. Pursuant to a process properly conducted in accordance with our procurement bylaw for the provision and installation of new playground equipment for Wallace Optimist Park. The proposed contractor selected through the process is Park and Play Design Co. Limited of Rocky View County, Alberta, and the contract value is $117,486.59, excluding taxes. Mr. Newell is here to address the matter. It probably basically just are there questions at this point, don't you think?
I think so. I just wanted to comment that we did have 6 bidders on the bid application. Many of them were the same ones that had bid on the Memorial Park project, which is underway currently. This one is the same company that did the Memorial Park or won the Memorial Park contract. So our hope is that we see good performance on the first project as well as the second one, but they did score the highest again this time around. We're very happy to be putting the park in Wallace. It's had nothing but a swing set for years, and it gives an opportunity for the siblings of those kids that are playing sports there for something else for them to do. And as we've seen even from this evening's presentation, just the growing community and affordable recreation and the importance of playgrounds as a way to playgrounds, trails, those type of amenities are important to the public. And currently with our playgrounds is we're really trying to replace old infrastructure at this point. So it's exciting to have a new park coming online, and we're looking forward to working with this company again. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, colleagues, questions? First comments, Councillor Andreessen first, and I think Councillor Blazek after that. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you through you, Mayor Kasenberg. I'm certainly excited to see this playground come to the Wallace Optimist Park. It's exciting for us. And thank you for sharing the diagrams, photos of, proposed plan for the actual equipment.
Yep.
One of the things I'd just like to ask in the future is that proposed playgrounds have more ability for children with mobility issues, especially in wheelchairs, that kind of thing. As I look at these diagrams, I noticed that everything included climbing and stairs, which is great, but not so good for kids who are in wheelchairs. Actually, I noticed in the diagrams there are pictures of children in wheelchairs, but they wouldn't be able to access a lot of that due to no ramps there. So it's not that I'm opposed to this, I'm not, but perhaps in the future, some consideration could be possible for having some kind of ramps included for kids with mobility issues. Thanks.
Yeah, AODA is one of the things that has to be built into every park design. We are at the point now that this was the design that we liked, but we can always ask them to swap out pieces as long as they're in the same value. And we'll be able to add more accessible pieces once we do a further dive into what their designs are. So it shouldn't be a challenge for us that way. But I agree. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Blazek next.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I just wanted to say, Mr. Noel, that you and I have had discussions about the work that goes into picking each individual piece of the playground and the choices that are made and the costs associated with them. And I really just wanted to say to you that, like, the inner kid in me sees these pictures and thinks that this playground looks like a joy. So thank you for the work that you have put in here. Wallace has needed this for a long time, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else with comments or questions? Just a quick policy question. Do we refer park designs to the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee at the Perth County?
No, we don't, but they have to make AODA requirements as part of their certifications in order to do this. So it would have been, not through that committee, but it would have been vetted that they are accessible components to it.
It may be to your advantage to consider in the future these kind of projects being shared with Jack, because certainly they do good work and have expertise, lived expertise in most cases of members who will provide the service of evaluating the proposals that come forward and designs that come forward. Okay. I have a resolution, if there are no further questions or comments, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth awards request for proposal NP-057-23P, Wallace Optimist Park New Playground Structure to Park and Play Design Co. Limited, Rocky View County, Alberta, for an amount up to $117,486.59, excluding taxes. Moved by Councillor Nordholm, seconded by Councillor Blazek. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
All right, let's move forward here then to item 10 on our agenda. Colleagues, do any of you have any reports to request of staff or of our committees? I'm not seeing any expression of that. Let's move on to item 11 then. We have received one item of correspondence that warrants our review and or action. As item 11.1, we have received a request for road barricade placement for the 2023 Remembrance Day service in Atwood in areas surrounding the Atwood Cenotaph. We have a resolution to facilitate this as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth directs staff to provide barricades for the Remembrance Day service at the Elma Cenotaph on November 5th, 2023 from 1:45 to 3 p.m. to be placed at the following locations. First Monument Road at King Street, Second Monument Road before Queen Street, and Third Monument Road at 164. And further, that North Perth Public Works, Fire, OPP, and Perth County EMS be advised of this event. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Duncan, thank you, and seconded by Councillor Andreessen. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Moving on to item 12, then we are at that point where we consider in aggregate a group of bylaws that has been proposed that relate to the business over the course of the meeting. And as follows, we have consideration of 4 bylaws. The enabling resolution outlines their number and purpose, but before I read that resolution, for passing those bylaws, does any councillor wish to extract one or more of them for a more fulsome consideration? Anybody? Okay, not seeing any. So I have the resolution here as follows: that the following bylaws are hereby passed. 125-2023 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 78-2022. 128-2023 being a bylaw to exempt from part lot control block 71, plan 44M 74, 44R 6159, part 1 through 10, 642 Ray Avenue South, Elma Ward in the municipality of North Perth. 129-2023 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 6-B-1999 as amended, and 130-2023 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 6-B-1999 as amended. I'm going to actually call and see if Councillor Anstead would like to be our mover for that one.
Yes, I would move that.
Thank you, Councillor Anstead, and Deputy Mayor Kellum will be our seconder. Thank you. Any discussion or debate on these bylaws? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that resolution is carried. Thank you. Now, let's move to item 13 on our agenda. Do any councillors wish leave to give notice of motion tonight? Councillor Blazek, let me get your microphone. Here we go. There we go.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. I have sent in writing this notice of motion to our clerk and to you as well. You'll be receiving that in your inbox. Let me just read it out loud for you. Whereas the current housing action plan proposes that investment be made into the investigation, planning, and construction of affordable housing units and or complex at the location known as Part Lot 15, Concession 8, Elma Ward. And whereas the investment by the corporation into affordable housing is a large, though necessary, commitment that should be given due consideration to best ensure that the investment is of the greatest benefit possible to those households who rely on affordable housing. And whereas the community of Atwood does not currently contain critical amenities such as reliable public transportation, employment opportunity, grocery retailers, indoor recreational facilities, childcare facilities, medical offices, to support those households relying on affordable housing. And whereas many of the households who rely on affordable housing do not have access to private transportation. Now therefore be it resolved that the municipality of North Perth be directed now therefore be it resolved that the staff of the municipality of North Perth be directed to cease any further investment into step 16 of the housing action plan until such time that the council has been provided with a report containing the justifications for the selection of this location, part lot 15, concession 8 Elma Ward, over and above any other location in North Perth that could potentially offer better access to essential amenities, and until council determines whether or not to continue in this specific direction.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Blazek. The clerk has confirmed receipt of the resolution, and that will be considered at the next meeting of council. All right, anyone else wishing leave for notice of motion? Okay. That brings us to item 14 on our agenda. Colleagues, are there any announcements that would be of benefit to our community or that reflect well on North Perth at this time? Councillor Andreessen.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor Kasenberg. Little Agricultural Society is hosting their harvest auction and harvest dinner on Saturday, October 28th. Tickets are available for $30 per person, and this is a fundraiser for the Little Agricultural Society. And if you're needing tickets, I believe they should be purchased probably by tomorrow. So should be a great night.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Andreessen. Anyone else with announcements of benefit? Councillor Blazek.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. As Councillor Andreessen had mentioned at our last meeting, she and I, as well as several other women in this community, are sitting on a committee for the North Perth Women of Distinction, and we are holding an event on November 4th that is a fundraiser for United Way. And I wanted to mention to our community that nominations for the North Perth Women of Distinction Awards are open until midnight tomorrow night. So anyone who has nominations that they would like to get in, please do so. And tickets for the November 4th event are still available.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Blazek. Anyone else with announcements? Councillor Andreessen.
Yes, thank you, through you, Mayor Kasenberg. It came to our attention an email that Claire Klein had little baby Willow on October 17th. So I just want to congratulate her and her family and wish her all the best.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that. Yes, and I think on behalf of this council, I can express our congratulations to Claire Klein for the little one and the adventures that will bring into her family. All right, that brings us to item 15 on our agenda. We have no matters for consideration in a closed session meeting of council tonight. Therefore, for item 16 on our agenda, we have no matters to report about. We did not hold a closed session meeting. Council, as a mandated good practice, acts near the end of its meeting agenda to confirm all of its actions and business of its meeting through what is called the confirmatory bylaw. For item 13.1, I have an enablement resolution as follows: that bylaw 132-2023, being a bylaw to confirm generally previous actions of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth, is hereby passed. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Richardson. Councillor Anstedt, will you be our seconder on this one?
Yes, I would second that. Thank
you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. And that means we've hit that magic moment of the evening where we resolve to adjourn. I have a resolution to that effect. As follows: the council meeting adjourns at 9:11 p.m. to meet again for general council business on Monday, November 6, 2023 at 7 p.m. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Rothwell, and seconded by Councillor Richardson. Not debatable. Let's have that vote.
I'm in favor.
Thank you, Councillor Anstedt. And that is carried. Our next regular meeting of council is November 6, 2023. Deputy Mayor Callum will be in the chair on that evening due to a work conflict on my part. Until that time, this council is adjourned.